Well, we know Ryan Grubb is leaving. The question is, will he be leaving in a huff? Okay, I got to find a better way to say that.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the absolute best. You know we love you so very much. Jimmy, Ryan Grubb will be leaving Alabama. I mean, there hadn't been like an official thing that I've seen. I mean, it's like everybody's just, he's leaving. I mean, it's sort of like, well, the divorce isn't signed, but I mean, she's not staying at the house anymore, and she's over at this other guy's house. I mean,
yeah, Pete. She's with Pete Davidson now.
So Ryan Grubb will be with Pete Davidson. Okay, so Ryan Grubb is headed to the Seattle Seahawks. It's funny. I put Grubb is headed back to Washington, and then in parentheses state to try and clarify. Like, I mean, he's going back.
And now it looks like he's going. Now it looks like he's going to Wazoo.
It looks like he's going to Washington State. He's going to Seattle. I know this. Let's talk about that before we get into talking about the potential of Coach Huff leaving Alabama's offensive line and going to Seattle as well. But let's just talk about Grubb here for a second. How big a deal is this to you? I saw you make a post, and in a very Jimmy Stein-esque way, you said this could either be a catastrophe or it could be a huge upgrade when we ultimately hire an offensive coordinator. Thank you for that brilliant analysis.
I know. Well, that's what I mean by it's bad. Look, it's bad. I mean, no one's saying it's not bad. I'm not spinning anything. It's bad. Ryan Grubb, I believe, is one of the best offensive coordinators in all of college football. And it was a huge bonus to hiring Kalen DeBoer that you were inheriting Ryan Grubb because of the reputation and the production. So this is bad. Those that are just throwing in the towel and quitting altogether and panicked over this, how do we know who are we going to hire to replace him? How do you know that this is bad when we don't have a replacement just yet? I mean, let's see what the end result is when we determine what level of disaster we're talking here.
And Greg Byrne did say they knew this was a possibility and that Kalen DeBoer has a plan in place. I mean, is that just athletic director speak? I don't know, but I think it'll be interesting. And it also brings up another question. If he did know, and let's assume that obviously the Seattle Seahawks knew, did Alabama, air quotes, and Seattle, air quotes, conspire to say, okay, let's make sure this happens after the 30-day window? If they did that, I'm really have no problem with it now. I would have had a problem with it 5 years ago when there wasn't a transfer portal and NIL and everything else. But players are leaving you in a lurch all the time now. And coaches are going to leave you in a lurch too. And everybody's doing the best for their own survival. And this is the world that we have created. So, I mean, I've seen Barrett Sallee say things like, well, this was shady if they did it. Barrett Sallee, listen to me. You went to Auburn. Y'all have hired Hugh Freeze. You get no say in that. So just, again, I don't like it. I wish it weren't this way. I will say this. I wish it weren't this way. I don't think it's shady when you compare it to everything else that's happening today. This is the new world we have created. I don't like it, but it is the new world.
I mean, I know it's so much more fun for people when things are shady looking and it's a conspiracy theory, and that's a lot of fun for people. I prefer to look at facts, not like opinions, not theories, facts. If Seattle was helping Alabama, which by the way is stupid, Seattle doesn't give one crap about Alabama. Seattle doesn't. Now Grubb might say, hey, I don't want to screw my friend DeBoer in Alabama, so could you hold off on an announcement? That's plausible. That's plausible, sure. But here's the thing. The 30-day window expired Friday at midnight. Now we're recording this Sunday afternoon. There hasn't been an announcement. So for all they were waiting, this is all the portal, then they would have announced it yesterday or last night. or this morning. So, I mean, factually, it's not starting to line up. I'm not convinced by any means that there's any truth to that. And again, I know for certain, let's talk about facts here. And this is a fact, not an opinion. Seattle doesn't care about Alabama and Kalen DeBoer and portal windows. They could care less. They're just trying to win an NFL championship in Seattle. Now, Grub might have said, it puts my program in a lurch. I'd prefer if y'all are hiring me to announce it Saturday when the portal window closes, or no later than Sunday. Just so the portal window closes and my employer's not in a bad spot. Now, here's one more final point. And now let's be honest, this is more opinion, but I'm going to strongly believe in it. Alabama did not land anyone in recruiting in 2024 because Ryan Grubb was thought to be Alabama's offensive coordinator. Not one player, not Ryan Williams, not even Ryan Williams.
Not Austin Mack.
Not Austin Mack. Greg Byrne hired Kalen DeBoer knowing that Washington may hire Ryan Grubb to be their head coach. We knew that. We knew that when we hired DeBoer. Didn't stop Alabama from hiring DeBoer. Alabama didn't hire DeBoer because Grubb would come with him. As a matter of fact, it was the complete opposite. Alabama hired Kalen DeBoer knowing that Ryan Grubb might end up being the head coach at Washington. Look, Alabama is going to sign kids because of DeBoer, because it's Alabama, because of the facilities, because of NIL, because of all sorts of reasons, the history in the NFL draft. But Alabama was not recruiting well because of Ryan Grubb, nor is the 2025 class going to be affected by Ryan Grubb. And had Seattle hired Grubb and announced this Wednesday or Thursday in terms of Alabama players hitting the portal, my honest opinion is zero. We wouldn't have lost a single player. They don't even know Ryan Grubb. People are just overstating that end of it. Now, where people might say, oh, this is just Jimmy spin and this is bad. It is bad. I'm telling y'all it's bad. We've said it's bad. We've said it's bad. Ryan Grubb is one of the great coordinators in college football. And now we've quote, lost him because it looked like he was going to be our guy, and we've lost him. That is bad. But zero effect on recruiting, zero effect on the roster. And let's see what DeBoer does. And by the way, DeBoer rose to being the head coach that he is and the head coach at Alabama because he was a fantastic, offensive coordinator. This is his thing. This is what made him famous. This is what made him wealthy, is he was really good at being an offensive coordinator. So it's sort of crazy to assume that Alabama is going to have a big problem at offensive coordinator. DeBoer can do that job himself. And in fact, Sark calls plays at Texas. Lane Kiffin initially called plays at Ole Miss. I don't think he does now. But the point is, head coaches do call plays. That does happen. So that may be an end result here. I'm not saying it's an upgrade, but DeBoer was a darn good offensive coordinator.
All right. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, who could potentially replace Ryan Grubb, and also will we lose Coach Huff, who coached the Jordan Moore award-winning offensive line this year. So we'll talk about all that. But, something that Coach Kalen DeBoer may need, he may need to take a look at LinkedIn himself. And if I can ever find this overlay, there it is right there. All right, now I can get into it. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing many hats and might not have time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. So go boast your job for free at linkedin.com/lifeoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lifeoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, I'm willing to bet here that they're going to apply. I'm going to go back to my point and say that I think you're right. Number one, losing Ryan Grubb is bad. Number two, even though I made fun of you earlier, you could technically upgrade in the sense that maybe you find somebody that is sort of a new upcomer. Because here's the thing. I think if Ryan Grubb was good, we were going to lose him next year anyway. Somebody was going to take a chance on him as a head coach, or some NFL team was going to take a coach. So you get a young up-and-comer who may enjoy recruiting, at least for the time being, until it wears him down like recruiting erodes your soul. But I'm going to go back and say this, that I could the accusation that this is just I'm clutching my pearl. This is appalling that you would wait to that 30-day transfer portal. First of all, I think you laid out some pretty good points as to, number one, why it wouldn't matter if that's what happened, and number two, that Seattle doesn't care. Seattle's got one Alabama player on their roster. Yes, maybe arguably one of Seattle's greatest all-time players. Sean Alexander is an Alabama alum, but they're not. He didn't even finish his career there. Seattle has no time. The NFL doesn't give a rip about your college team. I'm sorry to tell you that. The NFL is so much bigger than college. They don't care. So why they would conspire with Alabama to be like, hey, let's keep this on the down low. No, if they thought it would help them, they would announce it immediately. If they weren't worried about it, they're like, you announce it when you want to. We ain't worried about it. So they don't care. They didn't conspire with anybody. And if Ryan Grubb did it, even just to help out Kalen DeBoer, I'm telling you, it's not that big a deal. Don't point a finger at him and say he's shady. That is so irritating to me when you see the tactics.
Lose players anyway. Who are we going to lose?
Who are we going to lose? No, but
who was leaving?
That's not even the point, Jimmy. The point to me is that college football has become this is the norm in college football now. Mm-hmm. Chip Kelly just left UCLA. You want to talk about leaving a program in a lurch? He was like, all right, I've recruited everybody here, and here's the deal. I'm leaving to go be an offensive coordinator. I'm downgrading. And then Bill O'Brien, who just got the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State, he's like, yeah, Boston College job opened up because their coach hated being in college so much, he left for the NFL. So I'm going over there to coach. And guess what? If I get a call from the NFL, I'm going to leave them in a lurch. And the players, they're leaving people in lurches like you wouldn't believe. Some of the rumors you've heard about players who were talking, before they got on the plane to go to various bowl games, a lot of those things are probably true. Saying, hey, if you don't pay me more money, I'm not getting on the plane. That stuff is probably true. The stuff you hate to believe is true is probably true. So what I'm saying is, if you want to call the whole thing shady, feel free. I think it is too. I don't like it. I don't like the state of this whole thing. But if you want to just point out Ryan Grubb as being the poster child for nefariousness in this day and age of college football, you're out of your cotton picking mind. I don't know what else to say. So now,
what did he do any too different than what Todd Monken did at Georgia?
Nothing.
The NFL called and he said, "Yes, sir." That's what they do. All of them.
So who do you think Alabama will get? I've seen some folks, namely, this is just social media stuff that I've seen because again, I've been traveling and so I hadn't really been talking to people about all this. But the Missouri's offensive coordinator is a name that's been thrown about.
Yeah.
Is that a realistic? Yeah. Look, I like the Missouri's offense. That'd be fine with me.
Yeah, there's some upside, and here's pros and cons to Kirby Moore. He's the offensive coordinator at Missouri, and I do think that that's a very possible outcome here. Possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's possible. Kirby Moore used to coach for DeBoer, so he's in the DeBoer tree, knows the DeBoer offense, and I think he did an outstanding job at Missouri last season based on what he had to coach and work with. For Missouri to have that kind of season and the improvement of Brady Cook last year, fantastic. So I would be on board with this. The drawback to me is just this. He's very young. He was not a quarterback growing up. He was a wide receiver. He has only coached the quarterback position 2 years in his whole life. He had been a wide receiver coach because he's a wide receiver guy. He was moved to coaching quarterbacks in 2022. So he's coached quarterbacks in 2022 and 2023, and that's it. And it just seems kind of a little nutty, frankly, to entrust the careers of our quarterbacks at Alabama to a guy who is a fawn in the deer world of coaching quarterbacks.
Well, specifically one quarterback.
Yes.
It seems like a big risk on our part. It's not that I'm worried about entrusting their careers. I've given up on this whole, we want our kids to be coached by somebody that blank for their careers. They may transfer tomorrow. I mean, literally tomorrow. So I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm worried about Alabama. But what I'm worried about is, can this guy who is a former who is a former wide receiver, not a former quarterback, how is he going to translate what he needs as a former wide receiver to a guy who a lot of people thought may move positions to wide receiver at one point in his career?
Yeah, so I think that's the quote con or the drawback to Kirby Moore is just a lack of experience, particularly a lack of experience coaching quarterbacks. It's jarring, his lack of experience. But again, you can say, well, he coached quarterback last year and look what he did with Brady Cook. I agree. It was outstanding. Brady Cook's improvement over the course of last year, every bit as impressive as Milroe's improvement throughout 2023.
Agreed
every bit. So I'm intrigued by Kirby Moore. I'm just saying that, he had, very flimsy resume, but the results in 2023, outstanding. So that would be an interesting name for sure. I'm not sure he would leave Missouri. I'm sure it would be a bigger money, certainly more prestigious, to be honest, about where Alabama's lot in life is versus Missouri football. But that is a possibility.
To play with, but he would not have Luther Burden.
Yeah, wouldn't that be weird? Yeah, it doesn't have we wouldn't have Missouri's wide receiver one for sure. But he would have quite a bit of quarterback talent to work with. So we'll see. I think that's I'm not sure. I'm not even ready to make a prediction yet as to what would happen, but I do think Kirby Moore is one of the strong possibilities.
Okay, so Coach Huff, we don't know yet about his status, if he'll be leaving or coaching Alabama's offensive line next year. I mean, call me crazy. I'm not really worked up one way or the other about this. This just doesn't move the meter as much for me. And I appreciate the fact that his team won the Joe Moore Award. I think that's fantastic. I would like to have him on this staff. I think that's fantastic. At the same time, I'm not going to pretend like losing the offensive line coach is going to doom the season.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. I really feel the same way about losing Scott Huff, assuming that happens, and that looks like a strong possibility of happening. Again, nothing is certain. I will say ESPN reported that Huff is likely leaving to Seattle. So that's exactly my position based on what I know right now, likely leaving for Seattle, although not certain. Alabama is making an effort to keep him, of course. But I feel the same way about losing Grubb. It's bad. There's not a good way to spin this. I think he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the sport. That's why his unit won the award for being the best unit in college football. It's why the Seahawks want him because he's really, really good at his job. And it's bad. But again, who are we replacing him with? I need to know that before I need to know to panic. I mean, if we're replacing him with, let's say, Paris Hilton, I'm going to panic. I'm going to say she's never coached in college football, and I don't think she knows anything about the offensive line. I'm going to panic. We went from a 10 to a 0 in terms of ability to coach our offensive line. But if we replace him with a high-quality coach with a really nice resume, how can I say that that's disastrous? It might not be great. It might not be Scott Huff, but it wouldn't be a disaster if you replaced him with, I don't. I think the guy at Florida State, Atkins, is really good. I mean, that's just one name I'll throw out. I think he's a guy that's big name right now in the sport. You replace Huff with Atkins. How is that a disaster? It's not a disaster at all. It's just like, well, this guy's pretty good too. So I just want to see who the replacements are before I sign up for the, hey, let's all jump in the oven.
It's the worst game that I've ever played.
No way to win that.
Let's all jump in the oven.
I'm just saying the amount of hand wringing and is just nuts, considering we don't know who's going to be replacing these guys. 0 stars
on Fandango was let's all jump in the oven.
That was. And one more point, by the way, I think Lane Kiffin was a good offensive coordinator. I think Luke agrees with me. Lane was really good, right? We fire him, and then the next guy wins a national championship in 2017. He's now the head coach of the New York Giants. Sark comes along, who ends up being the best offensive coordinator that's ever worked at Alabama, in my opinion. So that's just an example of why are we panicking without knowing who the replacement's going to be and how they're going to do?
Because there's nothing else to do. That is the sole reason behind all of this. There's because here's the deal, Jimmy. I'm going to say something that might be controversial, because you and I would talk about, we could do this whole podcast on the basketball game yesterday. But we know that people like football, and we love football too. So we can also do the whole podcast on football. But there's not as many people that are as interested in the basketball side as they are on the football side. And that goes for you too, Auburn. That goes for just about everybody in the SEC, not named Kentucky. That's just the way it is. And you guys want to hear about football, and we want to talk football too. I'm just saying that whenever something happens in football, you're going to have some kind of opinion on it. So, but right now, I want to tell everybody about FanDuel. Look, the Super Bowl, by the time you watch this, it may or may not be over. It may not have started. I mean, I hate to be like Jimmy, like Ryan Grubb may be awful. It may not be a big deal. It may be the best things ever happened in Alabama. But anyway, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets or live same-game parlays or exclusive props and much, 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 much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go ahead and shoot your shot, like Lizzo told you. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. That's the National Basketball Association for those who only follow football. Okay, so
Lizzo reference in that last nice.
Jimmy, I swear the other day.
Hey, last Sunday was the Grammys, not this Sunday, but I'm impressed.
I know. Yesterday I'm in the airport, and like that Lizzo song, I've become to not like her as much anymore. She's too outspoken. I want my artist to be all like incredibly flamboyant, but not very outspoken. And she's it's like, what's that song where tell your friend to shoot his shot when you see him, 2 ladies already in my DM or something like that. That's so when I saw shoot your shot, like every time I hear about shoot your shot, like I'm like, he's already in my DM, and I need to change it from he is already in my DM, because then that looks weird on me. And a lot of things I got to fix about myself. Anyway, let's talk about the basketball game yesterday. So I expected this, not to necessarily win 109 to 91 or 92, whatever it was, but I expected Alabama to start out kind of slow, take a little bit of a lead, give it back, and then win big. That seems like our MO sometimes. I mean, again, I'm not 100% we've done this. I'm not going to go back and look at stats on this. I just want to say this is what it feels like we do. But here's the other thing. We're the most fun team in the country to watch. There will be somebody who just shook their head and rolled their eyes and did all this. Alabama is the most fun team in the country to watch on television. Now, if you're an Auburn fan and you're at home and you're playing a big game, Neville Arena is more fun. I give you that. Neville Arena, look, I mean, the place is wild. It's going nuts. But let's also say this. I watched Auburn, Florida yesterday. That wasn't fun. I mean, it just wasn't fun basketball. Alabama shoots threes at this incredible pace. They look for layups and threes. I know occasionally we will do some other stuff, but it's so much fun to watch us. And when we get rolling, I came in last night very late. Our flight was very late, and the SEC basketball game at Alabama LSU was on the SEC network. And so the replay was. And I watched it again, and they said, the announcers went, "Hey, wasn't LSU just winning a minute ago? What the heck happened?" I mean, they looked around. We're up like 14 points. I mean, like that. Like they had nobody knew what hit them. And including me, I knew what had happened. And I still, watching the game on replay, unpacking, I was like, holy cow, we're up 14. Like, what the hell happened? And that's why we're fun to watch. We are exciting. We have deficiencies. We're not the best team in the country. We have deficiencies, but we're the most fun. I mean, do you agree with me?
Yeah. I mean,
Who's funner?
I can't name anyone that's more
Who's
fun.
more grammatically correct? Because funner in the world.
A lot of illiterate people are, but in terms of who's more fun to watch, I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, and I mean this both as a compliment and an insult to current Alabama basketball, we're a little bit like the NBA All-Star game right now. I mean,
that's a good.
It's a little bit like the NBA All-Star game. It's incredibly fun to watch because we're going to put up 109 on you. Because we're going to shoot it and there's alley oops and we score all sorts of ways and it's the 3-point shooting is unbelievable. But then, for entertainment purposes, we allow the other team to do a lot of the same things because we're not very good defensively at all. And that's ultimately going to be our undoing.
Yeah, we
down
made
the road.
Will Baker look like Elgin Baylor yesterday. I mean, he was popping threes. He was posting up whoever he wanted to. He was blocking shots. This guy's not been that good all year. He
didn't know he was that good. He didn't know he was that good till yesterday. Yesterday, he's like, wow, I didn't know I was this good.
You could tell he had that moment yesterday where he was running down the court like, holy cow, I'm making this stuff.
Yeah, we should just say, you're welcome. You're welcome.
But that's
do a lot of good in the world. Yeah.
But that's also part of it. Like even we had some bad alley-oop passes. Yeah. But they turned into awesome alley-oops because Nick Pringle can catch a ball down by his crotch and then pick it up over his head and still dunk it.
Yeah, he has a weird best trait when it comes to basketball, Pringle. he does so many things not great. So many elementary things he does not great. But this one thing he does that's really hard, he does it better than like anyone else in college basketball. He's the best alley-oop dunker in the sport. And then it's pretty much not very efficient at anything else, Yeah, and it can be a bad pass, great pass, no pass. He's just an alley-oop machine out there. But boy, defensively, he doesn't help us a lot in the post, and he doesn't have much range. But hey, this is also true. I know it's been a frustrating season with Pringle. He's been suspended twice. Obviously, he's difficult to coach. But at the same time, he has a big personality and the fans like him. He's great on Twitter. It seems like Pringle's just a very, I think Pringle is turned up to 10. You know what I mean? I think he's just emotional. He's turned up to 10. So that means he's difficult to coach, but he's also a lot of fun because he's always got something to say. And he's an entertaining guy. He's certainly great with those alley-oop dunks. And Alabama is a better basketball team when Nick Pringle is available to play and help us play a few minutes. I think we're a better team with Nick Pringle. But, does that mean that Nick Pringle is going to play in the NBA? No. Or make an all-SEC team? No. But we're a better team with Pringle because we need all the inside help we can get, even if it's just with converting alley-oops. My favorite Pringle play, though, yesterday, Luke, despite the highlight plays, he got an offensive rebound putback, and it was so simple. And it was like, that's what we need. That's what we need all the time. Offensive rebound putbacks. And he did it once, and it's 24 hours later, and I'm still talking about it because that's what we need from that guy. And the alley-oops are fun.
And kudos to him for being suspended a couple of times. He didn't have, this horrendous outing at Auburn. It certainly wasn't great. But then he comes to LSU, 11 o'clock game. Let's not de-emphasize that this game was 11 o'clock in the morning. I know LSU had to play at 11 o'clock in the morning too, but that makes it for lackadaisical basketball at times.
Easy to imagine upsets on 11 a.m. games for me.
By the way, Alabama hosts Texas A&M, who just destroyed Tennessee next Saturday at 11. So just letting you know. But Alabama came in and LSU's they're like a typical SEC team. They've got enough talent to beat you, but if you will just turn it up, you all you have to be to 8. You don't have to, or 8.5. You can beat them on the road. Will Baker's a pretty good player. They got a couple other players. They had somebody that kind of tried to hurt Mark Sears towards the end, it seemed like, after a steal. I'm not mad at him. I mean, it was kind of a basketball play, but I think you need to take some of that stuff out of it. But regardless, Nick Pringle came through 17 big points. I mean, that was certainly a season high. I don't know. It could be a career high for him.
I'm not sure.
Could be.
I know it's a season high. I think
Definitely
he might have scored in the 20s last year once. Maybe. But regardless, it was probably his best game, which is remarkable 2 games after the suspension. And he did whatever he had to do to get back. He obviously Nate Oates said it himself. Nick Pringle has to decide whether he wants to be on this team. He decided he wants to be on the team. Now let's see if he can say yes, sir, and no, sir, the rest of the way out. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but he wants to be on the team. And I hope he can, grow and learn from this, because next year he'll probably be playing pro basketball somewhere on this earth. And it's time for him to be a professional when he does that, no matter where he's playing.
He could be off Earth in some Space Jam sort of situation, according to Jimmy.
That would pay well. I hope for him. I hope for his sake. That pays well from what I hear. But unfortunately, he's probably going to be in Poland, which may not play well.
Did y'all see the highlights? Did y'all see the highlights from NASA? Nick Pringle dunked right on Daffy Duck's face, right on his bill. Anyway, all right, hang on. So the rest of the SEC, and we only got like 30 seconds, but Kentucky loses at home again. First time they've had a 3-game home losing streak since God knows when. I mean, never in Rupp has it happened. And we got to go there in a few weeks. Auburn gets destroyed on the road, and I know it was only a 16-point game. Florida owned them from the starting tip till the very end. It could have been worse. We got Florida in Tuscaloosa before the Kentucky game, by the way. We got them after A&M and before the Kentucky game, if memory serves. That's tough. And then we have to go on the road to Gainesville, where they just took care of Auburn, where they have gotten better. Florida's gotten a lot better.
Florida's playing really well right now.
And Texas A&M just beat the mess out of Tennessee on the road. I guess Tennessee was on the road. And so we welcome them next week. We have got just this brutal schedule coming up.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, this team's coming together at a good time. And Mark Sears, it seems like at the beginning of games, or maybe through the first half sometimes, you're like, Mark Sears only got like 6 points. I mean, how's he averaging 20? And it's the same thing. At the end of the game, you're like, Mark Sears had 25 points. He had 22 points. He had 26 points. What the heck?
More 20-point games now than Brandon Miller had a year ago.
That's nutty. That's bananas.
Who would have?
Brandon Miller?
I've said it. I never would have. Just tremendously improved player from one year to the next. And the reason that Alabama might win the SEC, Mark Sears.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, I would have certainly bet money on Dalton Connect winning the SEC Player of the Year. I think it's going to come down to whichever team wins the SEC, whether it's Bama, South Carolina, Auburn, Tennessee, whatever, as to which player wins SEC Player of the Year. I think that's what it's going to come down to. But regardless, we're out of time, and so we will be back tomorrow with more Locked on Bama. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.